and as in the first part of this particular topic, that we really honed in on empathy, right? And I think that is the most important things. And in fact, one thing that I work with people, regardless of the pandemic or not, but especially more so right now, is this idea of building trust in the team as well. Now, a great book that people can use is a very easy to read, very hard to master book. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And they kind of look at a model and a pyramid of how do you bring trust in the team and in your environment as well. So the underlying foundation of a company to be successful, of a team to be successful, of a high performing workplace, is you first start by building trust. A lot of people will say, oh, let's focus on results, but the result is at the top of the pyramid. If you don't trust each other, you won't get the results.
Exactly.
Throw more money at the problem or more money at the team and say, oh, this project's not going well, let's keep on extending and extend it. If, as the project manager or the one leading the teams, you don't realize that this project is going well, of course we can throw more money and bring more people, but let's work on the foundation of the trust of the project. You won't get there. And if there's a lot of conflict within the team, which again is a part of that model, people will say, oh, there's a lot of conflict, let's go in and have a mediation. Let's bring in and start 2 people in the room and say, okay, why did you do this? And how can you guys start liking each other? Because, you know, this department or that department, they don't work well together, or within the team, you know, Samantha and John don't want to work well together, and you bring them through a mediation. Great, but if you don't start with the underlying first of the trust, how do you deal with conflict, right? So just to link back to what you said as well, is how this trust element is really, how, if you want some examples, pretty much the first part, what we just talked so far, will really help you with the trust. And it's all about empathy, and added to that is about vulnerability. And people really struggle.
Important, yes,
right?
yes.
And I'm sure you've seen that as well, Eva, when you work with people, when you're talking about the small talks in companies as well, right?
Yeah, of course. It's once that you can actually open up and be, you know, trust your colleagues, and also say, you know, well, I have a hard time with how this or that is working. This or that process that we have running might have worked before the pandemic, but now it's really disruptive to my life. That is being vulnerable. But if you can trust your colleagues or your HR person, your team leader with that, and then sort out problems and be more efficient, and then obviously feel more engaged and motivated, that brings a whole new dynamic to the work process.
Definitely. And you know, we Eva and I understand you. We know it's really hard because it's not something that we've talked that you might have to worry about a lot more now, because obviously everybody was in the same office and those things used to happen naturally. And as we said in the first part of the video, we really need to create the environment, the culture, and the happy workplace. And
and we are used to it just coming by itself. We're actually quite ungrateful for you know what we have when we work together in real offices. We just we often tend to dismiss small talk and say, oh yeah, that's not important. And then now that we don't have that anymore in our remote working situations, we realize, somehow things are not flowing that well. What do we need to do now? And that's what we need to do. Create empathy, give room for creation.
And I guess just touching on one of the examples that we said, and it's this idea of creating in places where people can have small talks and also talk to them, to understand each other, is really important. And of course, when you have new members of the team, it's really important for them to introduce themselves to the team and stuff like that, and create this environment. But sometimes as well, it could be that 2 people within the same company, they might have worked, they might be in the company for 10 years, but they never had to work together before, right? So if it's the first time working together, then it's really important that you start creating this space of vulnerability, of trust and empathy, and really getting to know each other. So one concrete example that I shared, actually it's quite fun because it relates to something I did really recently. I was giving a master class on creating values in teams for a program called We Lead Foods in partnership with the Cambridge University. And one thing I know sounds a bit weird, but bear with me, is this idea of creating a blueprint for yourself. So first start by working on what is my blueprint, so that it makes it easier
Interesting.
to go
Yeah.
into a meeting with someone new. It could be someone, like I said before, it doesn't have to be a new team member. There could be someone that's, you know, you never really have to work closely. But now that you're starting to work closely, then if you have a blueprint already, it makes it easy for the first time you talk about small talks. And what goes into your blueprint? I mean, if you're interested, then kind of, you know, put a note into this video or find us on social media. I can give you more information on that. But it's something very simple about what's your name? Hey. Like a bit of your background. Eva and I talked a lot about culture and the importance of culture and diversity in our previous videos. So please go back and look into that. Just share a bit of that. Share a little bit about your personality types. And again, that's what
I was going to ask you if that would go in there as well. It would make a lot of sense.
Exactly. Include that in your blueprint. In our previous videos, we talked about don't make it taboo to talk about your personality types and your culture differences, right? So just include that as part of your blueprints, and then also talk about how you prefer to communicate with each other and things like that. So I'm gonna put Eva on the spot right now because this is not something that we prepared, and we are gonna go and try and demonstrate how a blueprint works and looks like. Right? So this might be like a few seconds. We're not gonna go into details. So, for example, for me, if I have to talk about my blueprint, where I include personality types, I include my cultural differences, I include my strengths and weaknesses, and in the way that I like working with others. What I would say, let's say if I start working with a new virtual assistant as part of my business, I'm Naili Makangu. I will say a bit about my company. My personality types for this is DI, and also, and what you actually mean really is that I'm a high level thinker. I think I can come up with a lot of ideas, which is great, and I'm really good at leading teams and inspiring people. But honestly, if you're gonna work with me, especially if you're managing the work that I do, sometimes I have too many ideas, right? So it's good. What I would love from you as well is really to challenge some of my ideas and making sure that we get the ideas to completion rather than just starting new ideas and moving on and so forth and things like that. And you know what? One thing I really would appreciate, obviously I know that I want to find out more about your style, but for me, I process information much quicker if you send me bullet points or very small, start with the question at the top, because I get a lot of emails where people will write paragraph of text and then put the question at the bottom. And sometimes I'm like, I'll read that tomorrow or something. So those are kind of a few things that, obviously, depending on who I'm talking to and how we work together, I will share with people, and obviously my background and where I am as well. So Eva, how would you, when you go into your blueprint?
I hope I'll think of everything now, because I didn't get a chance to prepare this. So I'm Eva Karabishi. I think my personality type is someone who is a really good connector of people and who always wants to enable everybody to bring out their best. So I really like to connect to other people's personalities and see how I can support them. But on the other hand, I'm also sometimes a bit of a perfectionist. And so I may tend to overthink things and to need a bit more time until I'm actually ready to go. So what would be really helpful for me working with somebody new is what I would say in my blueprint conversation is that sometimes when you think that I'm actually ready to go and I've actually thought enough, that you just give me that tap on the back and be like, Eva, okay, let it be. You don't need to overthink. Just go. That really helps me sometimes. I actually do that for myself a lot. But if I work in collaborations, that's really something that can really help me from the outside sometimes to receive that little push, to not mull things over too much. And other than that, in technology processes, and working together. I really like personal communication to sort out any kind of tasks, or how will we approach things. So if ever it's possible, I love to schedule in a video call rather than having 10 emails
Oh,
going
yes.
back and forth. That's really not my style.
No,
Of course, I can adapt if somebody
yeah.
really prefers to have emails or doesn't have the time for a call. That's usual, but that would be my preferred mode of communicating.
Fantastic.
Actually,
Thank you
very
so much for sharing. And actually, what I love about this, I just found out a lot about you. And some of the stuff that you mentioned, I've already noticed because we're collaborating together. And other things is like mental notes. Next time I need Eva to
But same for me. I will try to keep my emails a bit shorter.
Yeah, but and yes, I think this was a bit of fun. Obviously, there's a lot we haven't touched on, but you can see how already we haven't even gone into the vulnerabilities, but we already have something very interesting and important to understand how Eva and I can work even better to continue our collaboration. And that is the same thing that you can do. It didn't take us much time, right? So you can.
No, but it was fun. It was spontaneous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for people who struggle with the spontaneity, and obviously Eva is amazing at this, but I put her on the spot, right? She did. Again, our work is we work a lot with people and teams and with coaching and stuff. So you might say, oh, it's easy for you guys to do it. Well, if it's not easy for you, then spend some time to write something down first, which is why I've got like a blueprint postcard that I call it. And if you're interested, I can send that to you. Really go down and think about the vulnerability. Even I haven't touched on that, maybe keep on following us on our social media channel. We might even do a special video just on blueprint and vulnerability, so that you can see how it flows and how you can incorporate that as part of the small talks that we've talked about, and as part of your teams as well. And so just to finish off, one more very, very quick advice, just to bring everything back together. We talked about how you can have sessions that are designed for introductions. So you can even have a session where everybody bring their blueprints and talk about that, and you go really deep into the vulnerabilities. But sometimes you can pepper your meetings with that, as Eva was saying, rather than thinking about, just change your minds and change the way you think about team building exercises. It may not building trust and building your team doesn't mean that you always have to go on a retreats or have special meetings. So having what they talk about in cooking, like deconstructed cheesecake, is in like really expensive restaurants, where you will have all the ingredients of a cheesecake, but it won't be the form that we expect. It will be
Oh, that's such a good metaphor.
Yeah. So use that analogy to think about deconstructing team building exercises, so that you can paper your meetings and paper the session and the way you work with each other with some of that, right? So I'll just leave you with that. And if you are interested in deconstructing meetings and sharing your blueprints, and please come and just comment, find us on social media, and we'll be more than happy to talk about that.
Yes, we will.
And just to finish off, and obviously, again, this is another fantastic topic that Eva and I can talk about forever. I'm not sure about you, Eva, but that's my feeling. So can you share with other people some lessons learned, or like one thing that they can just take away from this session?
Yeah, what I really would hope everybody takes away from this session is that just because the work environment changed and the work situation has changed drastically, don't forget that people are still people and human beings, and that is a very, very, very important part of doing business together. We can't just become machines. It doesn't work for a very long time. It doesn't work very well. So take all the ideas that we threw at you today and just incorporate some humanness and some caring for each other into your work. That would be my lesson.
Definitely. And for me, my lesson will be about spend some time to understand yourself. I'm actually recording, depending on when you watch this, but I'm recording videos on how you can boost your emotional intelligence for personality types. We talk a lot about empathy, and please really spend some time to create your own blueprints that you can easily share with others, and speak to us if you want more information on that.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it. If you've enjoyed our talk so far, make sure that you subscribe, and there are more videos coming back as part of the series on how to build an inclusive, fun, and high-performing workplace. Remember, reduce the social distance within your teams, but it's even more important that you continue protecting yourself and that you follow all the restrictions within your area, so that together we can actually kick the pandemic and COVID-19 outside of our world.
Yes.
Thank you.